Guys, Phil Monteleone, the book peddler here, coming to you with another YouTube video. If you haven't, I hope you like and subscribe to my content, the book peddler. You stay up to date on in-store, out-store activity, business selling experiences. I'm going on 10 years in the book business. I have 2 brick and mortar shops. I sell online, and I like to provide valuable content for you guys. So if you find value in this, consider subscribing to the channel. This video specifically, as titled, it's going to be how to source for books. And I labeled it advanced methods for the reason being I've seen a lot of videos out there that talk about sourcing books, and they're very standard, and I just thought I could do a better job at providing relevant information, getting you to think outside of the box a little bit, and be a little bit creative in an approach and where there may be books to get your foot in the door. A lot of videos will say go to thrift stores, book sales, estate sales, all relevant information. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will say, I think a lot of people take for granted that these are always going to exist the way they currently do in your area, if they do at all. In my area, the book sales are being heavily picked over, and people are probably being hired to list these books. So they're so watered down that now I haven't been to a book sale in 5 years. The thrift stores around here have been dry forever. There's nothing worth note that I've ever pulled from a thrift store here. So my activity level of going to these things have greatly reduced. Now, part of that is having a brick and mortar shop where people do bring me a lot of material. I do get a lot of house calls. But if you're not in that position, I do believe it's best I'm going to introduce some ideas to you to get thinking a little bit different about how to find some of this material. One key thing that I'm leaving out, which is a video in itself, is it's one thing to get in the door. It's another thing to know how to buy. And the money is in the buying. As I said in the past, that's what I've learned. It remains true. So if you don't know how to buy properly and what that means to you and what your margins need to be, you're still going to be a little bit lost. Now, I did do a video years ago on buying books in bulk. I will link up an end card if you'd like to check that out. I haven't watched a video in a while, but I do believe a lot of that information will remain relevant and probably still close to how I continue to operate. Maybe certain things have changed, but I'd say that that might be a good video for you, and it could be applicable to follow up with this one. Now, I will say that a book that I'll be referencing is by Richard Booth. It's called My Kingdom of Books. I recommend that anybody getting into the business of book selling would really be doing themselves a good service if they read biographies, autobiographies on people who come before, who made their livelihood selling books. This I'll be referencing because it had gems in it on how Booth sourced books. So I will be referencing from his book a little bit, and I'll also be giving you my own, little gem drops for you. Now, if you'd like to purchase this book, I became an affiliate with Biblio. The link's in the description. I get a small percentage of the sale if you decide to go through it. These videos take a long time to make. I try to put a lot of effort in these, and I know a lot of you appreciate it. If you would like, there's also a Buy Me a Coffee fund. Every donation in there goes to my in-store coffee fund for my customers, my friends, for both buildings. So it's not expected. It's appreciated if you do so, and I thank all of you who have donated. So you can put a little coin in my jar if you would like, if you find value in this. And I thank you for joining me. So this is one. Let's get started here. This is one of the questions I always get is, where do you find all these books? And there are those standard responses. There's house calls, there's estate sales. But there's a lot of picks that I get that I've gotten them just by thinking outside of the box a little bit, okay? And basically, I want to say that I'll be doing a separate review on Booth's book. Right now, I'm not going to get in the background of him. I'm just going to be polling his sourcing techniques. At the end of this video, I'll be saying the most important aspect of all this, the important advice that I've heard that wasn't in Booth's book, that I've internalized years ago when it comes to this sourcing. So I hope you stick around for it. Books are generally still undervalued. more so than antiques. A lot of people have books, they want to get rid of them. Um, One thing that Booth was doing was he was buying out monasteries, and he was buying out something called minor libraries in his town. By the way, he was located in Wales. He came to this country and bought a lot. I know a couple book dealers he bought off of. He would actually go through the store with a big and he'd select sections, and then the next day they would pull up a shipping crate unit, and his workers would fill that unit. That was one thing Booth was doing. But he was also buying out small local bookstores all over the place. He was buying out, as I said, monasteries and something called minor libraries. These libraries were established by the local mining community. When the community started to break down, the libraries were destined to go with it. Booth saw value in these and scooped them up, saving them from the dustbin. So when you read something like this, start thinking about similar situations in your area you're in, and you can try to figure out a way to get within those walls and purchase material not valued anymore by the local populace. These miners' libraries comprised of paleontology, works on the grasses, shells, stars, fossils. They rocks, okay, whatever, geology. They So Booth talks about a professor who wanted to recreate these libraries. He recognized the importance in them when nobody else did. And that's one of the key things, is seeing that opportunity and that importance that goes overlooked by most. Now, if I had to follow this up, I would say maybe local fraternal organizations, they have libraries. That in a lot of these places, they'll get donations and they don't necessarily have the space to keep these books anymore. Now, these different organizations and groupings, they do exist all around the place. Now, one of the things that I've had success with has been historical societies. Historical societies are another groups in your local area. You can join them, help them out, to where they get a lot of donations. They'll always have a percentage of stuff that's kind of out of context that they're not interested in keeping, and they need to get rid of. They need to get more space. They usually don't have proper funding or enough funding, basically. And those are one area to get a foot in the door, where you can find great material in there. Why not write them a letter introducing yourself, and you may be surprised at getting a response. So I've found that those are great areas to source in. Another thing would be maybe joining your friends of the local library sale. You're helping them sort. You could probably put some books aside. They might even give you those books, or at least at a fraction of the cost. So groups and organizations, your churches, a lot of churches will have libraries, and sometimes those get overfilled. It's amazing. Also, regular libraries, if you go to small town ones, it's amazing how we may have a perception that these people have awareness of what they're handling, and they would never throw out a book like that. And you would think that they would see the importance of something. But I've had books that have walked in this door from the 1600s, very of historical relevance. I had Hamilton's Federalist Papers, one of the volumes, come through the door. They were destined for the trash. One of my largest sales I've ever made just recently was going to be thrown in the garbage. So sometimes, people that you would expect to have more of a background and familiarity with some things or recognize value, that's not always the case. And they exist in your local historical societies and libraries, wherever you are in this world. So joining groups, I think, was good. One of Booth's learned from a legendary bookseller named Harry Benz. Now, Benz joined a local natural history society. It proved to be very beneficial and fruitful. He now had good access to material he could capitalize. So put yourself in that mind frame of thinking, are there organizations and groups that you could also be playing to help out in your local community, and also having some footing and possibly getting some material? So at least it's a possibility. There's a door there that can be open. Now, let me cut in here with some of my own sourcing things that I've done in the past. I used to set up at flea markets. Now, flea markets were a good thing for me to show face. They knew I was a book guy. I had cards. They knew I was a serious buyer. I had a established shop. And a lot of these people at flea markets that are picking material to bring to it do come across books. And sometimes you'll find great books at flea markets too that people just want to get rid of. I also used to set up at gun shows. Outdoors is very big in this area. So I bring some of my best material, talk with people, and everybody, there's always somebody that has books to sell. And say if that's your niche, if that's what you're into, and these people are at this kind of event, their father may have books that need to be moved, their grandfather, and you're now putting yourself in the position to allow people to have access to you to introduce and get you more material, instead of them donating it somewhere. So that was very worked very well for me in the early years. Antique shops are another thing that I source, and I made a separate video on that. I can link up a card up above here if you'd like to click on that I made years ago. Those I found gems in as well. I found books that I've sold for hundreds and thousands of dollars, sourcing from local antique shops. Now, another thing that Booth would do and Harry Benz would do was called knocking for books, okay? If you ever seen the American Pickers, of course, it's a very staged show, but that's essentially what's going on there anyhow. And they have their paper that they present the person with. You can observe the conduct of how they approach somebody. Again, even though it's staged, the whole idea of knocking for books. Now, where do you find those opportunities? Again, I think this involves just having some discernment. One of the quotes that Benz would tell Booth, which I think was very relevant, was and they also had great success at doing this, by the way. He would say, "Follow the river, boy. That's where the treasures are." When you think about it, the rivers, the canals, these were the highways of the day. Supplies came through, houses were built alongside them, and I can concur that in houses that are built next to these locations, I have typically had the best success at. A lot of these, as I'm reading my notes, a lot of these houses, if they're generational homes that have been passed down, well, a lot of them say Booth had a taxi driver that basically made an observation that when you see people cutting down all the trees in the front of their house, you know it's hard times and they need some money. Maybe if you're driving through your town, you see a house that needs some paint, a big early house, or they're driving a car like mine, they may be able to use a little money. And usually in these places, great grandma's books might be in the basement. Again, I found nothing but treasures in these early homes that have come into the shop that were in a basement or an attic or along these riverways or canalways. So if you have your eyes open to it, you can look at an old map even of where these things are, but I'm sure you would know where they are in your own town. And what's the harm of giving a little knock on the door? You're salvaging and saving material, and you're putting some money in their hands that these people could need. So I hope I'm giving you enough to think about. I'm going to give you a couple more things, and I hope you're finding value, in this video. And of course, like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Let's talk about another aspect. Lawyers, okay? They close on houses, right? We all have lawyers in our town. Some of them we want to string up, but there's lawyers everywhere. They close on homes. Sometimes they're the first ones in these homes. Introduce yourself to your local lawyer who does this. Present to them. Meet them face to face. Say, I buy books if you come, whatever. Work out that deal. Lawyers is one. What about contractors? Do you have friends that are contractors that are in people's homes? We can use these other business avenues to get in the doors and get first potential picks. So All of this I've found to be successful in one form or another. So I hope this is giving you something to think about. So just to recap, we've talked about joining local societies, historical, friends of the library, where libraries can be found, knocking for books, maybe picking up and observing uh, a place of potential, and giving a little knock on the door. What else have we talked about? We talked about setting up at flea markets. Maybe you set up at an art show and bring art books. It's all about getting that word out that you're a serious buyer, that you buy books, and meeting face to face with people, which brings me to the most important point of this video. Harry Ben said, um, he school booth in the ability to gain the confidence of the host or seller. He said a good book dealer will have the owner running all over the house trying to find stuff to sell them. I find this very true. When a dealer has ability to relate to their clients, can be patient, confident in the purchase, and they build a trust with somebody, that'll pay back in spades. The relationship with the seller is the most important thing. If you establish a good foundational relationship, you cannot beat it. I get a lot of house calls in private picks because I treat people right, and I'm upfront. I'm trustworthy. They want to sell their books to me, and they want other people to sell their books to me. Just yesterday, I had a friend of the shop giving me a lead on a big pick close by to me. To get my foot in the door. Another customer from Jersey. He doesn't even buy a lot, but we get along well. He got me one of my biggest picks of my life. And they're happy to do so. It's the relationships building that's going to pay off. You don't need a hard sell. You don't need to necessarily pressure. Every situation is different out there. But if you do provide a positive experience for people, they're going to want you setting up at your shows. They're going to want to recommend you. Auctioneers, I'll stay away from that, but there's another avenue to maybe build a relationship and a rapport with somebody. So anyhow, I think that's all I have to say. If you have different, interesting, unique ways that you've sourced or that you found to be successful in your business, leave them in the comments if you'd like. Again, this doesn't help you in knowing how to buy the books, which is something else that takes experience and handling material and knowing where your margins have to be. But maybe this video can help you thinking outside of the box a little bit and getting your foot in the door ahead of people, eliminating competition and getting your eyes on fresh material. That's it for me. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Till next time, we'll see you.